Hey folks, this is just a quick lab safety video, just so you know kind of the basic safety rules in our chemistry classroom. It's lab policy that you cannot participate in any lab or activity that involves chemicals, heat, or glassware until you have returned your signed safety contract and scored well on your safety and equipment test. And the guidelines for that test vary from class to class, but the general guideline is a 90% on your safety test, the safety portion of the test, and 80% on the equipment portion of your test. So if you take notes on the safety rules, it should help you study for the safety portion of the test. So your Flinn Scientific Student Safety Contract that looks like this, links are on Canvas, will help you study lab safety. And in this video, I'm highlighting the most important rules. Many of them are common sense, but some of them are less obvious. And so these are kind of the most important rules, I think, on that contract. So these are the ones we're talking about. If you need to pause it to circle them, that's fine. Go ahead. So, most important rule. Be responsible. Use your common sense. Tell me if you have any concerns. If you see anything broken, if you see anything spilled, if you see any equipment that looks like frayed or damaged, anything that seems out of the ordinary, please let me know. Always read and follow instructions. Read labels. Make sure you're using what you think you're using. Ask whenever you don't understand something. Okay. You should never touch lab materials until you're instructed to do so. So if I'm ever not in the room, you should be nowhere near the chemicals or equipment. And even if we are about to start, until you've received instructions, you don't touch those materials. No food, drinks, gum, or cosmetics when we are doing an activity. You're allowed to have water in the classroom, but that water needs to stay away from the lab area, and you're certainly not drinking water during the lab. It's by your desk, not by the lab area where you're doing your work. Obviously, no matter how clean a piece of equipment looks, you need to treat it as though it has dangerous chemicals on it, because it may well have dangerous chemicals on it. You have no idea what's on it. It does not go anywhere near your mouth. Absolutely no unauthorized experiments. You follow the procedure to the letter. Don't do any creative mixing of chemicals on your own. Be attentive to your experiment. Don't leave your lab area. Don't go horsing around with other people. When you're in the lab, you're focusing on your lab experiment and nothing else. Keep your lab area tidy. Don't have it full of clutter. You don't want to spill chemicals on your backpack. You don't want to spill chemicals anywhere, really. So, and also always follow cleanup procedures. Leave the lab as clean or even cleaner than you found it. You should always know where safety equipment is. First of all, first aid kits. I have very simple first aid kits in the front of the room, the back of the room, and in my storage closet. But if you have anything more than a scrape, I'm going to send you to the nurse. Eye wash station. Our classroom, room 208, does have a eye wash attached to the sink at the back of the room. You have to pull out the stopper in order to divert water through the eye wash to actually make the water hit your eyes. This should only be used to rinse hazardous chemicals out of your eyes. You do need to rinse for 20 minutes. If you wear contacts, those need to be removed in order for the eye wash to be effective. You should hold your eyes open. It's not easy. I have used an eye wash. It is not easy. It is not pleasant. I hope you never need to use one. And if you always wear your safety goggles, it will not be an issue. If we're in one of the real lab rooms across the hall, any of the labs along the outside wall of the building, those lab rooms that have windows, those labs have a safety shower eye wash station. So you can see that down here, there's an eye wash attached to the safety shower. A body drench is kind of like a shower head that you can attach to the sink to rinse hazardous chemicals off of your body if using the sink would be awkward. So if you have a chemical spill on your hands or on your arms, you can probably wash those in the sink. But if you have a chemical spill on your leg, it's hard to get your leg into the sink. So that's where the body drench becomes useful. A body drench is all I have in this classroom, room 208, but if you're in one of the real lab rooms across the hall, they do have safety showers. So room 207 has our closest safety shower.
And look here in room 207, just across the hall, we have a safety shower. This is what it looks like. Right across the hall.
Whether you're using a body drench or a safety shower, those again need to be used for 20 minutes to rinse all of the hazardous chemical off of your body. You should remove your affected clothing because otherwise the clothing is just going to press the chemicals against your skin, making the problem worse. I know it's embarrassing to have to remove clothing at school. The fire blanket, while it should mostly be used for fires on people, another acceptable use of it would be as a privacy screen if clothing does need to be removed that you would not normally wish to remove at school. The fire extinguisher is by the door. That's true in all of the lab classrooms because you never want to make yourself stuck inside of a classroom that has a fire in it. So the fire extinguisher is always near the door. Fire extinguishers are used to put out fires on objects, not on people. If a person or their clothing has caught on fire, that's when you use the fire blanket, which is located in the back of our classroom. It can also be used as a privacy screen. That would be another acceptable use of the fire blanket. It is certainly not a hand towel, so don't use it as one. The nearest exit, in case of fire or another emergency, is the staircase outside the room. That staircase leads to a door outside. And the fire alarm is right there next to the staircase. So in case there is a fire and we need to pull the alarm, that's where to find it. There is a broken glass bin underneath the sink at the back of the room. It's important to always put broken glass into this special bin, not into the general waste, so that our custodial staff don't get harmed. It's also important to never touch broken glass with your bare hands. Please use the brush and dustpan that are hanging at the back of the room. All of this safety equipment that we've discussed is for emergency use only. Any unauthorized use will result in a write-up or worse, and a loss of lab privileges. Rule number 13, tell the teacher if you see anything unsafe. Anything at all. Let me know. This really goes along with rule number 1 as well. Dispose of chemical waste as instructed. Sometimes I will tell you to throw something away in the garbage can. Sometimes I will tell you to pour it down the sink with plenty of water. Sometimes I'll tell you to neutralize a chemical first before pouring it down the sink with plenty of water. Sometimes I'll tell you to filter the waste so that I can remove solids from the liquids before disposing of the waste. And sometimes the waste can't be disposed of in those methods and I need a special waste container for it. So follow directions, please. Keep hands away from your face until you have cleaned up and then washed hands with soap and water. There's no point in washing your hands before you're done cleaning up because you'll just dirty your hands with chemicals again. So those goggles stay on your face and your hands are away from your face until you're cleaned up. You should never be behind this back lab area without my permission. This is where I prep my chemicals, so you don't know what's back here. So please don't come back here. This is my prep area. Same goes for the storeroom, but the storeroom isn't very close to this classroom. If there's a fire drill or another emergency, you should close all the containers, close all the gas valves, turn off all electrical equipment before leaving or before sheltering if it's a tornado kind of drill. We don't need to add any additional hazards to the hazard already in place. So if it's a fire drill, we don't need another source of fire like burning Bunsen burners. That's why we take care of the hazard sources first before we exit the building in the case of a fire drill. Fire drill meeting point. When you go down the stairs outside my classroom, you're going to exit through this door and you're going to cross the parking lot walking towards Tobler, and then you're going to turn right and hang out by this big tree, the first big tree. There's a small tree here, but I want you by the big tree because usually people are congregating here and it's too crowded. We don't want anyone in the parking lot. So if you come past this tree here, that's where you should meet me. It's our meeting point. Meet here. In case of tornado, we are an internal classroom with no windows, so we would shelter in place in this room. Hard lockdown procedure, we'll discuss that in class. It is important that you notify me of any relevant medical conditions that you have. It's important for me to know about school-relevant allergies, including foods, including latex, that sort of thing, so that I am aware. Also, if you're pregnant, that's something that you should discuss with me to make sure that we're not working with any chemicals that are known to be hazardous to fetuses. So, a lab is whenever we are using chemical, heat, or glassware. Those are the three conditions that constitute a lab. Whenever that happens, you must wear safety goggles. It is the law. Safety goggles. No chemical splashes can get in from the sides. Unfortunately, they do you no good when they're up here. They're not forehead goggles, they're eye goggles. Please notice that safety goggles are not the same as safety glasses. Safety glasses, like this bottom image here, do not protect you from side splashes. Safety glasses are great if you are working with tools, hammering, things like that. It protects your eyes from direct impact, but it doesn't protect from any impacts from splashes from the side. That's why you must wear splash-proof safety goggles. So there is a difference between those two. Make sure on a safety test, you mentioned goggles, not glasses. Okay, tell your teacher if you wear contacts. If you wear contact lenses and you end up needing to use the eye wash, generally those contact lenses must be removed in order for the eye wash to be fully effective. On a lab day, you must wear long pants and closed-toe, closed-heeled shoes. So not sandals, not Crocs. Those don't work. You must tie back long hair. During experiments, you don't want to get chemicals in your hair. You end up washing your hands, but then you have some chemicals here rubbing against your face. That's not a good idea. No dangly jewelry or super baggy clothing. That's particularly a fire risk. Long sleeves, on the other hand, are not required. It's actually quite convenient to be able, if you splash chemicals on your arms, rather than having to kind of remove your shirt in order to get your body clean, it's actually extremely convenient to just be able to wash your arms in the sink. On the other hand, it is less convenient to wash your legs. If you are wearing shorts, getting your leg into the sink to wash your body is rather cumbersome. Again, if you're spotting a theme here, you should report any incident, any spill, any breakage, or any injury like a cut or a burn immediately to me. Even if you think it's trivial, even if it's just a tiny scrape, if there could be a possible chemical hazard with chemicals entering your body, it is something that you need to discuss with me. If there is a pressing emergency, please yell. Please get my attention. You can yell a fire or spill or code 1. If you don't even know what to call it, just yell something to get my attention. If you or your lab partner are hurt, treat this as an emergency situation. If you're doing a lab in the classroom and somebody else yells fire or spill, you shut things down. You turn off those gas taps. You shut off electrical equipment because we don't need to add any fuel to the fire here. We don't need anything else bad happening. We need to focus on the one emergency situation at hand. It's important to realize that a chemical spill on a person is different to a chemical spill on the floor. If a chemical spills on a person, it doesn't matter what the chemical is. We want to dilute it as quickly as possible, because a dilute chemical is going to be less harmful than a concentrated chemical. So getting whatever part of the body that has been affected washed for 20 minutes is the only course of action. It's the best course of action. If a chemical spills on the floor, that needs to be addressed immediately, but we can handle it a bit differently because we don't want to hurt ourselves in the process of cleaning up the chemical. So, and the procedure will vary depending on the chemical spilled. For instance, if you spill an acid, I might ask you to neutralize it with a base like baking powder before cleaning it up, so that the chemical you're cleaning up is less harmful than cleaning up the acid would be. Similarly, if you spill a base on the floor, I might ask you to neutralize it with vinegar before cleaning it up. So the procedure for spills is different whether you spill on a person or on the counter or on the floor. All lab chemicals should be considered dangerous, even if it's something like table salt that we're using. All chemicals need to be considered dangerous. If you're instructed to smell a chemical, you waft the fumes toward your nose using your hand, like so. You do not stick your nose in the chemical or right above the container, because there are plenty of toxic fumes out there. You should check bottle labels carefully before removing chemicals. You should take only what you need, because you never return chemicals, even unused chemicals, to their original containers. Okay, so here's my analogy to help you remember this. If you're at a salad bar and you put some salad on your plate, and there's some cottage cheese over here, and you eat your salad and then you're like, oh, I'm full, I don't want the cottage cheese. You do not go back to the salad bar and put the cottage cheese back on the salad bar, even if you didn't touch it. Even if you're confident that it's pristine cottage cheese and it would be fine for anyone else to eat it, you don't do that. It could be contaminated with goodness knows what. Once you've taken it out of the bottle, it does not go back into that bottle. Therefore, it's super important that you only take what you need. You should hold chemicals and chemical bottles away from your body. Carry them carefully. So if I'm carrying some sulfuric acid, I shouldn't kind of, carry 3 things like this, having the chemicals pressed up against my body. Carry only what you can handle at once away from your body. You should handle acids carefully. Dilute acids by adding acid to water, not vice versa. There's actually a little saying, always do what you oughta, add the acid to the water. If you have a Boston accent, it probably sounds better. Your clothes may end up looking like this if you do not handle acids carefully. Flammable liquids produce flammable vapors. So even if your liquid here is kind of far away, a couple feet away from the flame, the fumes can still catch on fire. So it is important to don't even light the Bunsen burner or even have the source of heat on until you're done kind of measuring out or moving your flammable liquids. Never, ever remove any chemicals or materials from the lab. That is strictly forbidden. Doing so will result in an automatic write-up and possible dismissal from all labs in the future. This is a burette. It's an extremely long piece of glass equipment, and it's important to carry it vertically when moving around the room. Do not carry it like a sword. This is how you will break it. Do not do that. Hold it vertically. Do not ever touch broken glass with bare hands. I have a brush and dustpan up here. I have a broken glass bin up here. Do not touch it with bare hands. You will get cut. And always use the broken glass container, not the general garbage can. Inserting glassware into rubber tubing or pipette pumps can be dangerous. So you should always use a twisting motion. This isn't something that you're likely to need to do in Chem 1, but for IB Chem and those classes, you're more likely to have to do this. The problem is that you're forcing glassware into a into a tight space. And if that glassware breaks and you're pushing it with force, that broken glass can go right through your hand. That is not desirable. Do not do that. These wash bottles should only be filled with distilled water and only use them as directed. It is not a squirt gun, and if you use it as one, you will lose lab privileges. Electrical equipment. Always plug and unplug electrical equipment by holding on to the plug part, not the cord. Tell the teacher, tell me if you ever see any damaged equipment. Always check glassware before using it. Wash it if it's dirty. You don't know what chemicals are in there. You want to make sure you're starting with clean glassware. And tell the teacher if you have any chipped or cracked glassware. That needs to be disposed of and you need to use new glassware. Hot glass may shatter if the temperature changes too quickly, like if you put it on a cold countertop or if you put it in cold water. So do not do that. Be careful whenever you're working around heat or flame. Never leave that heat source or any active chemical reaction unattended. If you are ever heating a test tube or any other container, it is important to make sure that the open end of the container is pointed away from yourself and from others, so that if the chemicals inside boil up and splash out, that the splash happens in a direction that isn't pointing at any people. Hot glass does stay hot for a long time. Also, hot glass and cold glass look exactly the same. Therefore, you need to be careful. If you've heated glass, you can test the temperature of it by bringing the back of your hand near, not touching, but just kind of feeling if there's kind of any radiating heat, and then moving a little closer and then tapping before you actually pick up the object. Do not put hot apparatus on the lab bench. Use an insulating pad. So if you have heated a beaker, don't then put it on a cold lab bench. Hopefully this will help you prepare for your safety test. Stay safe.